a time long ago, long before your great-great-grandfather's grandfather was born, when the world was filled with enchantment and bedevilment, particularly in the lush green hills and vales of Ireland. Why, in those days, Ireland was so much a place of enchantment and bedevilment that a decent man could hardly poke his nose outside the door to his own cottage without chancing upon spirits and witches and all manner of fairy folk who dwell within the invisible realm between earth and sky, and who have the power to grant either good luck or bad luck to mere mortals such as you and I, and should a body vex one of them, well, he might as well just throw himself down the nearest, deepest, and darkest well. Consider the case of Tom Fitzpatrick, a clever lad, as clever a lad as to be found in the whole of County Cork. Well, one fine day, this Tom Fitzpatrick was sauntering along the sunny side of a hedge when he heard a strange clacking, tapping sort of sound coming from deep within the hedge. Why, what a strange sort of sound that is, he said, going up onto the tips of his toes and trying to peer into the hedge. And what should he see but a brown pitcher that might hold 1.5 gallons of liquor, and a wee little dinny-donny bitch of an old man with a cocked hat on his head, and a dishy-dashy leather apron tied round his middle, nailing a heel-piece onto a shoe. By the powers, said Tom to himself, what have I chanced upon here? Sure, 'tis good fortune is smiling upon me today, for I've often heard tell of the leprechauns, but to tell God's truth, I never rightly believed in them. But there's one of them, in real earnest. If I go to work knowingly, I'm a made man. But they say, you must never take your eye off a leprechaun for even an instant, or he'll vanish. So, Tom stole on quietly, keeping his eye on the little man, just as a cat does with a mouse. And when he got up close, says Tom, God bless your work, good neighbor. Ah, thank you kindly. I wonder how it is that you'd be working on this fine day. Well, that would be me own business, and none of yours. Well, maybe you'd at least be civil enough to be telling the body that you got in that picture there. Ah, that they will, and with pleasure. 'Tis good beer it would be. Beer! Thunder and fire! Would you be giving a body a taste of your beer? Well, 'twould be fitter for you, young man, to be watching out after your father's property than to be bothering decent, quiet people with your foolish questions. For while you're idling away your time here, the cows are broke into the oats and are knocking the corn all about. Well, Tom was so taken by surprise by this that he was just on the point of turning to look, when he recollected himself and kept his eyes square on the little man, and being afeard that the leprechaun might try to trick him again, he pounced on the little man, catching him by the hand. Ah, that was a fine try you made at tricking me, but I'll not be letting go of your hand, nor will I be taking me eye off you till you be showing me where you hid your hoard of fairy gold. You are a most clever lad. I guess there's nothing for it but for me to be doing as you wish. So, if you go with me a couple of fields off, I'll show you a crop filled with gold. So, off they went, Tom holding tight to the little man's hand and never keeping his eye off him, although he often had to pass through hedges and leap over ditches and cross a crooked bit of bog, for it seemed that the little man, out of pure mischief, had chosen the hardest and most contrary way. But finally, they reached a vast field full of bullion bushes, what you would call yellow ragwort. Now, there, said the leprechaun, dig under that bush and you'll find a great crop filled with gold coins. Well, in his haste, Tom had not thought to bring the spade along with him, and he needed to run home and fetch one. But so that he would know the place again, he took off his red neckerchief and tied it around a branch of the bullion bush. Well, I suppose you have no further need of me. No, you may go now if you wish. Godspeed, and may good luck attend ye wherever you may go. And goodbye to you, Tom Fitzpatrick. And much good may it do you with what you get. Well, Tom ran for dear life back home. And finally, he got home, he got his spade. Then back he ran hard as he could, back to the field of bullion bushes. But when he arrived there, each and every bush had a red neckerchief tied to a branch. Each neckerchief identical to his own. And as for digging up the entire field, well, that is pure foolishness. For there were more than 40 good Irish acres in it. So, back home Tom trod, his spade on his shoulder, a little cooler than he went, and many was the hearty curse he gave the little man every time he thought of the neat trick the leprechaun had played upon him. Not every encounter with the fairy folk is so benign in nature. Consider the case of the fiddler of Ballykilcanis, an industrious and talented man who found it hard to provide for his family, for times were hard. So one day, he decided to journey to a nearby market town in the hope that his fortunes would improve. And it was there that he was approached by an old man who addressed him in an unexpectedly familiar manner. "And now, how goes it with you and your kinfolk back in your village of Ballykilcanis?" "Poorly. Quite poorly indeed. And I'm not surprised. For didn't your people fail to treat the fairy folk with a proper respect? And didn't the fairy folk leave Ballykilcanis? And didn't they take the luck of the village with them? But be ye of cheerful heart, for my people are in need of a good fiddler. And if you'll but come along with me, you'll be well rewarded for your service. I am yours to command." And with that, the fiddler put his fiddle into his bag and followed the old man off towards the river on the outskirts of town. A river which was spanned by what surely must be the most dangerously decrepit wooden bridge that ever straddled a mighty river. Well, over the bridge they ran, and off into the night, through acres of untilled fields. The old man running ahead of him, shouting, "Hurry! Hurry! My people are waiting for you." I'm running as fast as I can, but not even the devil himself could keep pace with you. But on they ran, till finally they reached the foot of a high and forbidding mountain. The old man scrambling up the side as if he were on wings. The fiddler tried to struggle to catch his breath. Then something lifted him high into the air and deposited him on a ledge half halfway up the mountainside, the old man stamped his foot 3 times. A stone door appeared in the mountainside, engulfing the fiddler in bright and dazzling colored lights. May the saints preserve me. He followed the old man over the threshold. The door closed. He entered a magnificent hall whose high domed ceiling and walls were covered with thousands upon thousands of emeralds and sapphires and diamonds. And there were tables heavily laden with salmon, pheasant, lamb, boar, and beef, and wine in crystal goblets as delicate as moonlight. Eat, drink, whatever you wish, you have merely to ask. And the fiddler did eat and drink, while scores of elegant ladies and gentlemen appeared and glided silently about the hall. Well, fiddler, have you eaten and drunk your fill? Indeed I have. Well, then maybe you'd be so good as to play us a lively tune. So the fiddler took his fiddle out of his bag and began to play for all he was worth, while his host sang and danced with wild abandon. Jigs followed reels, and reels followed jigs, and the hours flew like minutes as the fiddler's tempo became faster and faster, and despite the ferocity of his playing, neither did the fiddler feel in the least bit fatigued, nor did a string on his fiddle, nor hair on his bow snap. And it was with great reluctance that at last he heard the old man say, "Dawn is breaking. 'Tis time that our festivities should cease." The elegant ladies and gentlemen vanished, and the fiddler followed the old man out of the enchanted chamber and down to the foot of a mountain. "Well, fiddler, you have served us well, and rich shall be your reward," he said, producing a large pouch filled with gold. "I trust that you will find this to be fair payment." "Fair? Indeed, many times more than fair. Blessings be upon you and your good people now and forevermore." The old man vanished. Baffled, the fiddler slowly made his way back down to town. The sun gradually rose, illuminating the landscape before him, and the fiddler noticed something strange. Whereas only the night before there had been barren, untilled fields, there were now acres of golden wheat. And when he reached what had been a dangerously decrepit wooden bridge, there was now a fine stone bridge, supported by several stout stone columns. And when he entered the town, there were fine houses and buildings, the likes of which he had never seen before. And the people, who were dressed in the most peculiar manner, stopped to gawk and point at him as if there was something strange about his appearance. Jesus, Mary and Joseph, there's some bewitchment about this place. I must return home to my own village. But when he reached Ballykilcanis, he found that it too had changed very much, almost beyond recognition. Gone was the crude cabin in which he had spent all of his days. Gone were the homes of his kinfolk and his friends, all replaced by fine stone cottages with whitewashed plaster. And no one he saw looked familiar, and no one seemed to recognize him. And they were all dressed in the same peculiar manner as had been in the town he had just left. Then he heard the sound of the Angelus bells calling out from his parish church. There's the answer. I must seek out Father O'Reilly. Sure, he'll know how to undo whatever curse is upon me. But when he reached the churchyard, he found that it too had changed almost beyond recognition. As he wandered among the weathered headstones, his eye chanced to fall upon one bearing the name of his own wife. No. And to the right and to the left of his wife's stone were stones each bearing the names of each and every one of his children. Each stone saying that they had died over 100 years past the night he had entered the hall of the parish. He slowly rose and staggered to the church. He opened the door. A priest he had never seen before was reading from the gospel. He crossed the threshold into the church and crumbled into dust. Only his fiddle remained. Churchyard of Trua in County Monaghan that many years ago a most curious thing occurred. A young man lingered for a while following a funeral, and as he wandered among the ancient headstones, a beautiful woman appeared. And she kissed him. Oh, come to me, young man, the Spirit did say, and forever I'll love you, I'll never turn away. And so softly she kissed him, and this she did say, it will not be long, love, till our wedding day. To my heart thou art dear, the young man in a trance. 1 month from this day, I shall meet thee here. And he kissed her. Her movements were graceful, her countenance fair, and so fondly he watched her move here and move there, and she made her way onward with one star away, as the swans in the evening fly over the lake. But no sooner had the beguiling spirit departed, and the young man passed beyond the boundaries of the churchyard, than he remembered an old and terrible legend, which held that whosoever should be the last to leave the churchyard following the funeral, if he were to tarry there in the churchyard alone, would encounter a beautiful wraith. And if he were to pledge his love to her and seal his pledge with a kiss, 1 month from that day, he would join the spirit in death. And in the days which followed, from time to time, at a wedding, a dance, an ending marketplace, again and again the spirit appeared, reminding the young man of his rapidly approaching appointment with death. He dreamed on his last night, the dread spirit came in, so softly she entered, her feet made no din, and she drew close beside him, and this she did say, "It will not be long, love, till our wedding day." And as had been foretold, 1 month from the day he first saw her and kissed her, the young man was laid to rest in the churchyard of Errigal Trua. Now, should you ever find yourself in the little town of Kilmallock, County Limerick, you know, you might think to visit the ruins of the Abbey of Kilmallock, and if you were to walk down what was once the centre aisle of the church, you will find embedded in the soil 3 stone slabs, all that remains of the once stately tomb of Sir Maurice Fitzgerald, known to his contemporaries as the White Knight. Now, the White Knight, who was called this by virtue of the unusually light-colored armor he wore, was a hard man, fierce in battle, and the lord of vast tracts of land surrounding his castle in County Cork. Yes, they say I'm a hard man, but I say I had to be. I had to conquer this land. No one gave it to me, and there be many who tried to take it from me. The O'Rourke's for one. O'Rourke. Just give them diddles half a chance, and they swoop down upon us, killing every Fitzgerald down to the last babe in his mother's arms. But rest easy. That will never happen. Not so long as I'm alive. And when the good Lord calls me to me rest, me kinsman will remain safe in the hands of me son Edmund. And so it will follow, from my son to his son, and from his son to his son, to the end of time. Edmund Fitzgerald, however, was a man of a very different sort, for he was a dreamer of great dreams, a romantic to the very marrow of his bones, one better suited to be a poet than a lawyer. Rather than spend his hours improving his skill with sword and lance, Edmund spent his days riding out into the furthest reaches of his father's domain, glorying in the natural splendor of the Irish countryside. And so it was that one day, towards the end of the day, he found himself lost in an unfamiliar part of the Kilworth Mountains. Without warning, his horse reared, almost throwing him to the ground. There, standing before him, was a withered old woman, dressed entirely in black. "Who are you?" "Do you not know me, Edmund Fitzgerald?" No. I ask you again, who are you? And how do you know my name?
Surely you know who I am, Edmund, son of the White Knight. Everyone knows the Witch of Kilworth.
What do you want of me?
I've come to give thee a great gift. Follow me, and I'll show ye something wonderful.
I will not follow you. I am a faithful son of Holy Mother the Church, and will not traffic in works of the devil.
Fear not, young sir, for my powers come not from Satan, but from God. Follow me, and I give you word, nothing ill shall harm you.
Then, without saying another word, the old woman turned and walked slowly off into the distance, as if in a trance. Edmund followed her deep into an ever-darkening wood. On they went, till at last they emerged from the wood into a lush green meadow, which led to a high stone cliff in which appeared an impenetrably dark cavern filled with flickering lights.
I told you I would show you something wonderful.
What are they?
What else would they be? They be the candles of fate.
And as Edmund drew near, he could see that they were indeed candles. Thousands upon thousands of candles floating in the darkness. Some were tall and clean, burning with all the intensity of youth. Others were shorter, caked with the soot of decades. While some were so short, they seemed on the verge of guttering, burning out completely, their flames leaping about wildly, as if attempting to catch one last feeble breath. Behold! The candles of fate. There be one candle for every man, woman, and child who breathes upon this earth. So long as his candle burns, that man shall live. But when the last drop of wax is being consumed, and when the wick issues forth its last glimmer of light, that man shall die. Would you be wanting to see your candle? Edmund was afraid to speak. Fear ye not, young man, for this be your candle, she said, pointing to a tall candle
that was not even a quarter of the way spent. And as you can see, you will live to become a very old man. Thanks be to God. Now a wise man would be wanting to know how he'd be spending his days, in years of happiness or in tears of sorrow. Behold! Behold your destiny! The cavern vanished, and in its place appeared a vista unlike anything Edmund had ever seen before. Beneath a blood-red sunset, there appeared a vast stand of towering pines, their branches reaching cathedral-like to the heavens, and sheltered beneath them a grey stone abbey, guarded by a strong oaken door. The door opened, and from within emerged the most beautiful woman Edmund had ever seen in his entire life. Even by the gloaming, he could perceive every exquisite detail of her almost perfect face and form, her hair glimmering, her white silken gown flowing in the evening breeze. And when he gazed into her soft, soulful eyes, he felt as if he'd somehow known her before, known her for centuries, known her from the time before time, and that he would know her again. She smiled, as if somehow hearing his unspoken thoughts. She reached out her arms to him, beckoning him to her embrace. Edmund ran to meet her, and just as they were about to touch, the vision melted away. Edmund Fitzgerald, she is your destiny. Find her, embrace her, love her, if ye have the courage. But where shall I find her? Look deep within your heart and find the courage to follow wherever it may lead you. And then, as quickly as she had appeared, the old woman vanished into the evening mist. Yeah. From that moment, the memory of all that had occurred consumed Edmund's days and haunted his nights, and the vision of a woman beautiful beyond words seemed always before him. Day after day, he scoured the countryside searching for the abbey he'd seen in his vision, all to no avail. Week after week, month after month, he continued to search, but always his goal eluded him. Till one crisp spring morning, Edmund found himself in a lush green meadow, and off in the distance he saw a thick stand of pines, and sheltered before them a grey stone abbey guarded by a strong oaken door. The Abbey of Kilmallock. His heart pounding, Edmund raced to the abbey. Every instinct told him to charge the entrance, to search every room, every nook and cranny, until at last he found the beautiful woman who had for so long haunted his dreams. But then he thought better of his plan. Something told him he must wait just a little longer, pray that God would send him a sign, guide the last steps of his quest. He hid a short distance from the abbey and waited. Hour after hour he waited, till just as the sun rose to its zenith, the great oaken door opened, and from within emerged a beautiful woman. The same beautiful woman he had seen in his vision. Edmund could hardly breathe as she slowly made her way down the meadow, and then taking care that he not do anything that might frighten her, Edmund slowly
made his way to her. And at last he spoke. I hope you do not think me too bold, lady, but I had to speak with you. I know this will sound strange, perhaps even mad, but although I've only at last seen you in corporal form, I once beheld you in a fantastic vision, and I've been searching for you ever since. You must think me mad. Oh no, my lord, she answered, for I too have had a vision, and in my vision I saw a young man standing in a meadow before a cavern filled with flickering lights. And I heard a voice, the voice of an old woman who said, behold, behold your destiny. And the man I saw was you. And ever since I've been praying that our good Lord would send you to me. And as is the case, when kindred spirits find one another, time seemed to stand still, and before they knew it, the sun had crossed the heavens and was setting beneath the horizon, turning the sky a crimson red. As he was about to leave, Edmund realized he'd forgotten to ask his beautiful companion her name. Elgiva, she answered. Elgiva O'Rourke? O'Rourke? Edmund repeated, hoping against hope. He had somehow misheard. Surely this vision of loveliness could not be an O'Rourke. Yes, Elgiva O'Rourke. My father was Prince Breffni. Prince Breffni was Edmund's father's most hated enemy. But then, you haven't told me your name. Edmund. Just call me Edmund. And so it was that day after day, week after week, Edmund Fitzgerald met with the beautiful Elgiva O'Rourke in the seclusion of the meadow below Kilmallock Abbey. And week after week, month after month, he avoided telling her the horrible truth, which he knew stood between their happiness, till one day he could avoid it no longer. There is a secret, horrible beyond words, which I have been keeping from you, and which I may keep from you no longer. And when I have told you what I must, you will wish that you'd never laid eyes upon me. There's nothing you could ever say that could change the way I've come to feel about you. Whatever it is, we'll see it through together. Edmund reached out. He took her hand from his. A single tear fell from his eyes and he started to speak. I love you more than life itself, and I shall never love anyone but you. But it can never be, for I am Edmund Fitzgerald, son of the White Knight. For a moment, Elgiva could not speak, and slowly she raised his hands to her lips and kissed them, an act that was as much a sacrament as a kiss, absolving them both and freeing them both from the sins of their father. And in that moment, they became bound to each other for eternity. There could be no other choice. They would be married in secret, then flee to some distant land where they might live free from the hatred which had for so long consumed their families. And so it was that under the cover of night, the two lovers knelt before the altar in the Abbey of Kilmallock and exchanged their vows. Just as the priest was about to bless their union, his face turned ashen, his body paralyzed with fear. Looming above them was a tall figure shrouded within a thick woolen cape, his head hidden deep within the folds of its voluminous hood.
Moonlight glinted off the blade of the double-handed broadsword which he held aloft and plunged into Edmund's bride. With the cry of a wounded animal, Edmund spun round, preparing to respond with a savage blow. The whip fell back, revealing the face of his own father. Edmund fell to his knees. He cradled Algaida's lifeless body in his arms, his tears flowing down upon her, mingling with her blood. Get up, boy! Get up, I say! You shame yourself. You cry like a woman. No son of mine shall ever shed tears for an Aurora. Edmund pressed Algaida closer to his breast, as if by sheer power of will he might force the life back into her. And slowly, he looked back to his father. I curse you. I curse you. I curse you! From this night on you have no son. From this night on, you shall come to know the full measure of sorrow. One day, you will weep for what you have done here. You will weep and weep and weep, even unto death. I wish I were on yonder hill. 'Tis there I'd see and cry my fill. Now every tear would turn a mill. Is the day to Orient slide? Sure, lover, sure, goes to cry, sure, cadê all sight, the is contained of Orient's lawn. I wish in vain. I wish I had my love again, and vainly think I'll not complain. Is contained to a Orient's lawn. Come, my love. Oh, my love, won't you come back to me? Take my hand, and away we'll fly, and together we'll forever, ever be. I were yonder hill, 'tis there I'd sit and cry my fill, till every tear would turn the mill. Is going to take to the Orient's lawn. Sure, lover, sure, goes to cry, sure, endures all its side, the moon is going to
did come to Morris Fitzgerald. Prince Brevany and the O'Rourke's swept down upon him. And although the White Knight was able to withstand their onslaught, both sides sustained heavy losses. Edmund? He never spoke to his father again. When years later the old knight died, he was laid to rest in Kilmallock Abbey, in a tomb befitting his rank, surmounted by a carved stone effigy of the White Knight lying in state. Shortly after the tomb was completed, a passerby noticed something strange. Small drops of water appeared on the White Knight's effigy. Small drops which looked like tears. Even on the hottest, driest days, the tears flowed from the stone. For centuries, the strange phenomena continued. Perhaps Edmund's curse had been effective after all. Perhaps now in death, the White Knight wept over the rash act he had committed so many years ago. Then one day, a soldier appeared who had dreamed several nights in a row that a great treasure lay hidden within the White Knight's tomb. Overcome by greed, he broke into the tomb, smashing the stones asunder. He found no treasure, only bones, a pair of spurs, a sword, and the rusting remains of the White Knight's once proud armor. Today, all that remains of Morris Fitzgerald's splendid tomb are 3 stone slabs. Stones which, as I have seen for myself, still, to this very day, weep tears of regret. Time will always have its way. Consider Dunoran House, a grand house in its day, which today lies half hidden under the shadow of a nearby wood. Its passages overgrown with weeds and nettles, its ceilings rotted, its beams worn by tendrils of ivy, its once elegant walls stained and moldy with rotten plaster. But as I said, 'twas a grand house in its day. Sure, it was a fine estate when Sir Dominick came into it, and grand doings there were. There was free quarters to the pipers all the country round, and a hearty welcome to all that cared to come. There was wine by the hogshead, enough poitín to set a town ablaze, and enough beer and cider to float a navy. And Sir Dominick was only beginning where his predecessors had left off. But sure, there was not a way of getting rid of his money in his estates that Sir Dominick did not try. And what with the drinking and the dicing and the racing and the cards, the estates were soon in debt, and Sir Dominick was a distressed man. So late one night, he called for old Connor Hanlon, the butler. And Sir Dominick says to Con, "I need to say a word to you. Listen to what I tell you, and don't be afeard to say what you think."
And why should I be afeard, Master Dominic? Yourself has always been a good master to me, as was your father, God rest his soul afore him. I'll say the truth and dar the devil. It's all over with me, Con. Heaven forbid. Oh, I'm past praying for. The last guinea's gone, and this old place will soon follow it. Con, they say that if the devil gets you gold by night, you'll find nothing but a bag full of nutshells and pebbles on the morrow. But if I thought the old fellow would play fair, I'd be ready to make a bargain with him this very night. Heaven forbid. I'm going out to the deer park. If I be coming back, you'll be seeing me in an hour's time. But whether I come back or not, you'd better not follow me. For if you do, I'll have to shoot you. And that would be a bad ending to our friendship. So, Sir Dominic left the house and headed toward the deer park with the intention of hanging himself once he reached the center of the wood, provided no better thought came to him before then. He arrived at the center of the woods. He reached up to test the sturdy branch. He heard a clanking sound coming along the dry ground. A gentleman appeared. He was a fine gentleman like himself. He wore a cocked hat with gold braid and a cape embroidered with gold thread. The gentleman spoke, offering Sir Dominic a large pouch filled with gold. I am recruiting, sir, for my sovereign. Sir Dominic stepped back. You'll find that my gold won't turn to nutshells and pebbles on the morrow. Sir Dominic turned away. Don't be frightened. My money won't burn you. 'Tis honest gold. A hair stood up on the back of Sir Dominic's neck. I'm willing to make you a bargain. Your debts shall all be paid with gold to spare. You shall never miss the right card, the best throw, the winning horse. I guarantee your luck. Sir Dominic turned back round. I will serve you for 7 years. The bargain starts tonight, the 28th of February. At the end of 7 years, I will come for you as the clock strikes 12, marking the passing of February into March, and you will come away with me. Sir Dominic hesitated. If I fail to come for you at the stroke of midnight on the last day, you will be free out of the bargain. Could a man possibly be fairer than that? Are you willing? I am willing. The gentleman produced a needle and bade Sir Dominic draw 3 drops of blood from his finger, with he signed the bargain. Sir Dominic returned home a frightened man, and well he should be. But in a few days' time, he began to grow easier in mind, for his debts were quickly paid, and money came tumbling in to make him richer than ever before. Everything he took in hand prospered. There wasn't a game that he played or a bet that he made that he didn't win. And soon Sir Dominic went back to his old ways, for when the money came back, all came back. And soon there were hounds and horses and no end of wine and guests up at that grand house and grand diversions. Toward the end of the 6th year, however, something started to bother him more than common.
And as the 7th year progressed, he became more and more worried. Till finally, one night, unbeknownst to anyone else, back he went, back to the lonesome wood. Only this time, the further he ventured into the wood, the more frightened he became. And he was just on the point of turning and leaving the place when, waiting for him, under a tree, in place of the elegant gentleman in fine clothes and gold braid, the evil one was now dressed in rags, and he seemed twice the size he'd been. His face was smutted with soot, and he carried a murder and steel hammer with a handle a yard long. What passed between the two of them that night will never be known. But afterwards, Sir Dominic's mood was as black as night. Oh, he hadn't a laugh for anything, or a word for hardly anyone, and his mood only became darker and darker and worse, till he lost all heart whatsoever, and he called for a priest. Well, the priest was with him a long time, and when he had heard the whole story, he gave Sir Dominic good advice. You must immediately give up swearing and drink and all bad company, and live a strict virtuous life. And if at the end of 7 years, God be praised, the evil one doesn't come for you at the last minute as the clock strikes 12, you'll be safe out of the bargain. Well, there were only a few months left in the 7 years, and Sir Dominic lived all that time as strict as if he had taken holy orders. But, as you may guess, when the 28th of February came round, he was more than a bit worried. But the priest came up to the house that night, and the two of them knelt down in prayer, and they prayed for all they were worth, and kept up their praying and praying till and when the evil one failed to appear, they hugged and cried like two comrades after a winning battle. But just to be on the safe side, his reverence spent the night in the room next to Sir Dominic's. Well, the next morning, after all that fasting and praying, Sir Dominic thought he might as well enjoy a good evening. So he sent around invitations to a half-dozen of the neighboring gentlemen, inviting them to come up to the house and dine with him. And his reverence stayed and dined as well, and a roaring bowl of punch they had, and wine, and dice, and cards, the guineas changing from hand to hand, and the songs and stories, which could do no one any good to hear. And seeing the turn that things had taken, the priest quietly slipped away. Well, 'twas just a little before midnight when Sir Dominic rises at the head of the table and says, "By the saints, 'tis the best first day of March I've ever seen." "But it ain't the first day of March," said Mr. Hippoden of Ballyferreen. He was a scholar and always kept an almanac. "If it ain't the first day of March, what is it?" said Sir Dominic, looking at him like he had two heads and dropping the ladle in the punch bowl. "'Tis the 29th of February. 'tis a leap year. And just at that moment, old Connor Hanlon, who had fallen half asleep by the fire in the downstairs hall, opens his eyes and sees a nasty-looking fella in a long black cloak, his long black hair bushing out from under his hat. "I am here by appointment. Tell your master to come downstairs this instant." So, up the stairs runs the butler. "Sir, there's a gentleman here for you. Tell him I can't come down quite yet." So down the stairs runs the butler. "For God's sakes, gentlemen, one of you, jump out the window and fetch back the priest." The gentlemen all looked at one another, trying to make heads or tails of it. Meanwhile, back up the stairs runs the butler. He says, "Sir, that unless you come down to him, he'll come up to you." "I don't understand, gentlemen. I must see what this means," says Sir Dominic, trying to put a face on it, but walking out of the room like one who knows that the hangman stands just beyond the door. So down the stairs he starts, 2 or 3 of the gentlemen leaning over the banister to see. Down the stairs he continues to where the evil one caught Sir Dominic by the waistcoat, whirled him high into the air, and hurled him through a window. Out went the candles, bang went the hall door, down ran the gentleman. When they reached the courtyard, it was all over with Sir Dominic. There wasn't a gasp left in him. His body was already cold and stiffened. If someone had passed Dunloran House at that moment, he would have seen 2 figures gliding down the drive in silence, their feet not making a sound. One, a nasty-looking fellow in a long black coat, his long black hair bushing out from under his hat, and the other, Sir Dominic. Of all the money that e'er I had, I spent it in good company, and all the harm that e'er I've done, alas, it was to none but me. And for all I've done, for want of wit, to memory now I can't recall. So raise to me the parting glass, farewell and joy be to you all. Of all the comrades that e'er I had, they're sorry for my going away, and all the sweethearts that day. But since it fell unto my lot that you should rise and I should fall, I softly pray, gently call, farewell and joy be to you all. But then, that's far too dark a note on which to end our time together. So, I shall leave you with the true story of Timothy O'Flynn. Now, Timothy O'Flynn was a rich young man, always out drinking and carousing, and carrying on to the wee hours of the morning. Everyone said, he's going straight to hell, that one is. But that didn't bother Timothy O'Flynn. He didn't believe in hell. He didn't believe in anything. He didn't believe in the devil, or in the fairy folk, or even in ghosts, which of course every right-thinking person believes in. Well, one fine night, this Timothy O'Flynn was out with a young girl of whom he was particularly fond, when suddenly the poor girl burst into tears, crying, "You got to marry me, Timothy. You just got to. You see, you've gotten me into trouble." Well, now, that posed quite a problem for Timothy O'Flynn, for he loved the poor girl dearly, or at least as much as he could love anyone. But he loved his freedom too, and the thought of becoming a husband and a father was something he'd much rather postpone for as long as possible. So he decided to go out and walk his bed and sort of think things out. Well, he walked, and he walked, and he walked, till he was far from home. And the clock, had there been one to hear, struck 12 midnight. The hour when all reasonable people know that it's pure foolishness to be out and about. And lo, he saw a band of little men coming towards him. The fairy folk, you know. And they were carrying something large and heavy with them. And as they drew near, he could see what it was. A corpse! Now you or I might have run away that very instant, but not Timothy O'Flynn. He didn't move a muscle. Not that he didn't want to run away, but it seemed some terrible invisible force glued him right there to that very spot. "Ah," said one of the little men, "if it isn't Timothy O'Flynn, just the very man we'd be looking for. Ah, Timothy O'Flynn, 'tis a bad life you've led. And before the devil comes to take you away, we've come to offer you one last chance to make amends. So, be a good lad and lift that corpse up onto your back." Well, Timothy O'Flynn was quickly starting to reevaluate his whole attitude towards the fairy folk and the devil and hell and the whole kit and caboodle. But no power on earth would compel him to lift that horrible object up onto his back. "The devil will do such a thing," he said. "A bad choice of words," said the little man. And in an instant, the corpse flew up onto his back, grasping him by the throat with icy cold fingers, his clammy legs wrapped round his middle. Well, maybe the next time you'll be doing what you're told to be doing when you're told to do it, without resorting to such a disagreeable attitude. Anything, just get that corpse off me back, and I promise you, a changed man I'll be. Anything, 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 anything. Well, then you must carry that corpse on your back all the way to Timothy, and there you must bury it in the church under the flagstones of the center aisle, don't you know? How really? Isn't there some other? But be warned!
maybe you won't be allowed to burn it to Seamus. Maybe you'll be having to carry it all the way to Carrickadores. Or maybe you'll be having to try to Ronan. Or maybe, just maybe, you'll be having to go all the way to Kilbreda. Kilbreda! Who knows in which of these places you'll be allowed to lay down your burden. But be further warned, all this must be accomplished before the rising of the sun, for in that very instant the devil himself will grasp you by the legs and pull you down with him into the fiery pit of hell. Well, Timothy O'Flynn did not need to be told the thing twice, and he ran quickly that is, as one can run with a corpse on his back, towards Temple Seamus. But there was hardly more than a sliver of moon out that night, and poor Timothy O'Flynn stumbled over stones and tripped over hedges and banged his poor head into the leaves of some trees. But finally, all bleeding and bruised, he reached Temple Seamus. A high stone wall surrounded the churchyard. But fortunately, there was a place where the wall was in disrepair, and Timothy O'Flynn managed to squeeze through a small hole. A difficult thing to do when you have a corpse on your back. Well, he made it to the church, but found to his horror, the heavy oaken door was locked. "Try the key!" cried out the voice in the darkness. "Who's that?" "Try the key over the arch." "Now, who is that?" "Now, who else would it be? 'Tis me, the corpse." "You can talk?" "Then I want to." Timothy O'Flynn carefully ran his hand up over the arch, which curved up over the doorway, until at last he felt something long and cold. It was the key. He entered the church. Darkness all around him. "Light a candle, for God's sake," said the corpse. And at length, Timothy O'Flynn did find a candle and some matches to boot. And in the flickering candle's light, he made his way down the center aisle of the church, till at last he heard the corpse say, "Bury me here." Well, fortunately, there was a spade lying about, and Timothy O'Flynn pried up the flagstones and then dug down deep into the earth below. Now he had reached just about the right depth when from out of the ground rose up another corpse. "Leave me in peace! Leave me in peace!" cried the corpse. "Unless you be joining me here forever!" What? Timothy O'Flynn quickly made his apologies. He filled the grave back in, carefully replaced the flagstones, and fled the church in terror. "Carrickadores," reminded the corpse. "But I don't know the way to Carrickadores." "I do," cried the corpse with an icy breath, and pointed the way. Well, an hour or two later, exhausted and much the worse for wear, Timothy O'Flynn arrived in Carrickadores. But no sooner had he entered the churchyard than hundreds of ghosts rose up from out of their graves and flew toward him, shouting, "Get back! Get back! Get back!" Well, even the corpse was scared. "Timble round," and he shouted, "and be quick about it." But no sooner had he reached Timble Ronan than some strange invisible force grasped
poor Timothy by the scruff of the neck, lifted him high into the air, and hurled him into a ditch, well over 100 feet away. I know. So very tired, Timothy O'Flynn. I know. Kilbreda. Hurry, man, hurry, shouted the corpse. 'Tis only another hour till daylight. So on, and on he went. Sometimes he was so tired, he had to crawl, a foot at a time, on his hands and on his knees. But finally, he reached the churchyard in Kilbreda, and with his last few ounces of strength, he tore into the earth with his bare fingers until at last he reached a large black box. Timothy O'Flynn stepped back to catch his breath. The lid flew open. The box was empty. The corpse released his icy grip, gently slid down into the coffin, said, "Thank you ever so much, you've been a good lad," and closed the lid. The first rays of the morning sun gently spilled over the churchyard, and Timothy O'Flynn breathed one long sigh of relief. He'd done it. He'd finished his task in time. Or had he? For he suddenly noticed, for the first time, a large stone standing above the grave, and chiseled upon it was the name Timothy O'Flynn. "No!" he shouted as he felt himself being pulled down into the grave, earth sliding in around him. Oh, he couldn't breathe. All was darkness. And when he awoke, several hours later, he found himself back in his own village, lying on the very spot where he met the little people the night before. Well, from that moment on, Timothy O'Flynn was a changed man. Oh, he married his dear girl without a moment's hesitation, became a devoted husband and father, and a man whose lifetime of good deeds was a source of pride for his entire village. And that is the true story of Timothy O'Flynn. Well, talking corpse, weeping stones, fairy gold, and the devil's bargain. Cautionary tales. So, if one day you should happen to see a little man with a mischievous glint in his eye who offers you the opportunity to cross the threshold into the invisible realm between earth and sky, you might want to think twice before accepting his offer. But should you decide to take that irrevocable leap into the unknown, may I suggest that you think long and hard again.